Uh, just to keep that a buck. Um, but the story that's told, man, it's you know,
The opening sequence of let's say, we talked about Man of Steel, right? But
right,
now we're on this BVS note. So with Man of Steel, we had the end of Krypton,
yeah,
and then here it's almost like we as humans looking at this, right?
hmm
It was almost like that was the start of our end of just it being the human race. It almost was like the start and the beginning of Earth allowing it to allow these aliens to be a part of the regime almost of that world.
right,
With you had Superman fighting Zod and all this other stuff, and that just opened the can of worms of the metahumans and all this other stuff, Doomsday and everything. And it was almost like how you just throwing in and to your point with the storyline of it literally continuing off of where we left off, like expanding that world of like there was other things happening in the background
yeah.
while as us we're on the roller coaster ride of Superman fighting through the city of Metropolis, but really we forget that there's a whole nother city ride over here going on with Ben Affleck trying to save everyone as Bruce. Like
Bro.
it's pretty cool, man. It's crazy. It's nuts.
No, no, it is. No, it is. And actually, almost forgot to even mention this the last time we actually talked about Man of Steel, and so it's worth mentioning this, right? Because initially, the last discussion we had, and what I hope to do here for us also is like just pointing out the theological notions that exist within this framework of the story that is presented to us in this story, that very much have things that mirror or are reflective of that which is in Scripture. You know, the film itself, I feel, is uh, has a lot of tones that essentially are dealing with what's called, and I might be butchering the way to say this. I want to say theodicy or theodicy, right? Which is essentially, simplest way I could break that down, without actually finding the definition, is it's the idea of man battling with the idea of God being good when there's evil that still exists. How can
Yeah.
that be, right? That's what the idea of theodicy is. It's us grappling with this idea of how can God be good when there's evil, when He allows evil to exist in the world, right? When it's still
I,
manifested.
I believe Lex in that film says something about to
No,
that
well, that's
point, right?
the thing. That's what's crazy. That's so. But essentially, now hold on. Before I go forward, hold on. You
Yeah.
said something though that's crucial here. But all that to say that in Man of Steel, right? Again, this sucks that I didn't have my notes, but when I was looking at my notes, I realized like, I didn't say this about this. When Zora, yeah, Zora, no, Zora, yeah, his father's name Zora, no, Jor-El. Yeah.
Jor-El.
When his father Jor-El, right, is he's about to escape, right, the ship, right, and go back to Earth to save Lois, right. You can save them, you can save all of them, but that whole thing, right. Uh,
Mm-hmm,
he gives him that speech of he wants he reasserts the purpose, right, like you're meant to be a bridge between two people, right.
Yep.
And that right there it's key, because again, when we're talking about the archetype of Superman being that of Jesus Christ, the Savior, right? The Savior figure, the Messiah figure, right? So he tells them, you're meant to be a bridge between two peoples, and essentially that's what Jesus is also, right? Yeah, Jesus
Yeah.
is the bridge between us and God, right? He's the
Yep.
mediator between us and God. Like Jesus is the way to the Father, right? So essentially, that's right, because the Kryptonians, right, are of heaven, like heavenly, right? Like that again, it's about angles, it's perception, views, right?
Yeah.
So Superman is the bridge between us humans and the Kryptonians, right? which is Jesus is the bridge between
Yeah.
us and heaven. You know what I'm saying? So again, when you're looking at the archetype of, not Superman obviously as a character on its own, but especially what was used in this movies, in these movies that Zach was pushing forward, and why, I said, like, it's funny, that essentially it's like Zach wrote the Gospels, but via the vehicle of these DC characters, right? Because now, like you said, you get to BVS, and the way it starts, and I just love that he does this in all his films, like regarding the DC continuity he was creating, and that's that they all start somewhere where the story kind of left off in the previous film, right? Like, so obviously, like the Battle of Metropolis isn't the last scene in Man of Steel. There's something that happens after, right? There's a couple of things that happen after, right? And not to get into the details of that, but same thing with so when you get to BVS, right, and it starts with the Battle of Metropolis, which isn't the way Man of Steel ends, but it's essentially the end of Man of Steel in a way. But it does give us the angle of Bruce Wayne. But what you said was key, right? And I don't know if you remember this. I said there's something I'm going to expand on later because I don't want to just crack that code now for us.
Yeah.
Man of Steel, but I was like, but I'll get to it later, right? And that's that. And you said it. It's funny that Man of Steel starts with the destruction of Krypton.
Yeah.
Things coming down, something dying, right? When you get to BVS, same thing. It starts with this. Actually, there's two things that die, right? The death sequence actually, in it starts off with the Batman storyline or origin, right?
Yeah.
Death of the Waynes. Something dies. Something dies. The parents die, right? The same way that they died in Man of Steel, right? Jor-El dies, Laura dies. Then we go into the movie. In this film, the Waynes die. Thomas and Martha, they die, right? And then we go into the movie. But I still like the idea of the sequence also of the Metropolis, the destruction of Metropolis. It is mirroring that almost of the destruction of Krypton. So it's a slightly shift, right? Where like it's first the destruction of Krypton, then the death of the parents. In this one, it's the death of the parents and the destruction of Metropolis. But then you get to BVS, and again, it's the death thing is what I'm focusing on here, right? Or not BVS, I'm sorry. Yeah, BVS. Well, BVS is what we're focused. But I'll say this just to kind of solidify what I'm saying. When you get to Zack Snyder's Justice League, it starts with the death of Superman, right?
Yeah.
Visually, what I like about what he's doing here is that it's the way I interpret it is it's essentially using something that Christ says, right? And that's that the death of the old has to take place so that the life of the new can begin, right? So that's what's crazy about how these movies start. It starts with death, but then brings out this whole story that follows, right? Like something has to die in order for something new to begin, right? So the death of the parents bring out the new life in Clark, right? Like, what goes forward for him going forward, right?
Yeah.
The death of the Waynes are what dictates this new life now going forward for Bruce and technically the world around it, right? Because whatever. And then same thing with the Metropolis thing, right? The death of those in Metropolis bring forth a new life of how things are going to be going forward. And then you go to Justice League, same thing. The death of Superman brings out this new life of something occurring, of a story that's going to going forward. That to me is not just, it's not a coincidence, right? Like I think he does this on purpose. It's by design. It's touching on that, again, that idea of the death of the old brings life to the new, and so again, good. I'm glad that you saw that they're like this comparison. There's something there between the death or the destruction of Krypton to the destruction of Metropolis. or again, then if you look even more, the death of the parents, the death of the parents, the death of Superman. There's death. It starts with death, but death brings life, right? Like if you believe, that's essentially the truth, right? Something has.
Life and growth, in a sense.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Right. That's exactly right. So, or even more so, like the sacrifice of something can bring forth something good.
That's it right
Because
there.
essentially
Yeah.
that's how all these movies start. They all start with a sacrifice, right? Jor-El and Martha sacrificed their lives for the life of their son. Same
Yeah.
thing in BVS. Martha and Bruce, Thomas and Martha, they sacrificed their lives for the life of their son. Same thing for them.
Jarrell and Laura.
Yeah, yeah. Same thing with Jor-El and Laura. So it's about that sacrifice. But
And a lot of it too, you could also say with that,
yeah.
Jonathan Kent
Mhm.
sacrificing himself
Oh,
for the protection of his son.
oh, for sure. No, that's 100%. I touch on that with even with Sil and the episode I did with for Father's Day, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Highlighting the fathers that display that you know that lesson that lesson for their sons to take forward, whether it's, yeah, like you said, Jonathan Kent, whether it's Jarrell, whether it's Thomas Wayne, whether it's Silas Stone, what, you know what I'm saying, like these fathers that make these sacrifices and show their sons what they're supposed to do in a sense in these moments, um to protect their own children. But um but go back to even what you said about to now get into those undertones of theodicy.
yeah,
um Lex for sure plays on that throughout the whole film, for sure, or not the whole film, but like there's those moments where he's saying these things like, gems. But the reality is it's not just him. It's the entire film is this, right? But it
yeah,
starts with Batman. It starts with Bruce Wayne with the destruction of Metropolis, right? You're seeing, him being just a man looking, at the destruction, from Superman. The movie starts with him already doubting that which is supposed to be good. How is this man supposed to be a beacon of hope? How is he supposed to be, someone good for us when all this destruction and death has occurred around us, right? The very fabric of the Odyssey is established right there in the first sequence, you know, um, and it continues, right? Like, and it because full circle when you get to the end, right? Like, you were never a god, you were never even a man, like he's
yeah.
it's establishing the very notion that he was grappling with, to its extreme. Like, not only are you not a god, but nigga, you ain't even a man, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like,
It also showed the how powerful the mind can be when it
mhm,
comes to playing those tricks, man. Because essentially, I always saw that part of the film as Batman wasn't fighting Superman; he's actually fighting himself. He was fighting his guilt. Because remember, we see the ha 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 on the Robin suit. We see all this other stuff, and that's another sign of like your biggest battle is never with the person in front of you. It's the person who you see in the mirror.
100%.
It's with the person within, and
Yeah.
that was the biggest battle in that film that really many people don't touch on because you're so focused on all the aesthetics and
Hmm.
how literally physically it's Superman versus Batman, but it's mainly that because you could only really get that is when you see the snap in Bruce's mind of when Lois is like, "Yo, chill out, like relax, bro, like it's his mother's name," and he goes, I've just been played. Like I let myself, and it's almost like he wanted to get enticed to fight him because he didn't have the right place to release that anger, release what he was feeling, and it's like because you got to think, man, this is the greatest detective in the world, and you're gonna think a little, little clippings and stuff like that, like not taking away of anything Lex did because Lex orchestrated this, but he also, Bruce, I'm getting at here, is that he also allowed himself to do that because he knew this was his only way to release what he had inside.
Right.
And that is throughout the whole film what Alfred is telling him about.
Right.
He's like, you're not fighting Superman for the people. Stop lying to us. Stop lying to the people. Stop
Hmm.
lying to yourself. Because really you're there, you're really not fighting him, you're fighting yourself.
Right.
So
No, no,
yeah, it's a
you're right on
crazy,
the
it's a
money.
crazy story. It's like it's like a battle within another battle that leads back to the start of the battle, if that makes sense.
No, no, you're on the money. I mean, again, this is why I say like this is what we're talking about when we're talking about movies that have substance behind it. It's more
Yeah.
than it's like there's so many layers to this. You peel and there's this, you peel and there's that. Because like even this idea of the battle within, it's not even just Batman, right? You see that within Lois, you see that within Superman, you see that within even
Yeah.
Lex to a degree. You see that within the Senator, right? There's notions within ourselves that we're battling, whether it's mental, whether it's emotional, heck, whether it's even spiritual, right? The battle is within. Now, what's interesting though, what makes it interesting with Batman is that or Bruce is because it's so personal. Like you said, it's the guilt within, right? The death of the family, the death of his colleagues, the co-workers, his employees, you know, the death of his parents. It's the death of Robin, right? So there's more. The pain within him is it's so great, and like you said, he finally has this figure he can dish it out on, right?
Yeah.
Especially because this figure is being somewhat praised and lifted up, you know. But it's funny because Batman or Bruce is not the only one feeling this way, and that's what's cool about the story plot is that then you have figures that have the same perception, but it's funny because there's no connection, right? So what I mean by that is like then you have a character like Wally who's on
Yeah.
the same boat. He's on the same boat in the same mission to a certain degree, just not as extreme. You know what I mean? But the Wally thing that now I'm kind of getting too hard of myself, but the idea of it's not even just so it's like it's Bruce, it's Wally, it's those people that are having that discussion about him. Is he the Messiah? Is he whatever? Is he this? Is he that? Whatever.
Another thing to add real quick to that,
Mhm.
and I know when you first see it, when a lot of other people see it, everyone's first thing is like, oh, Batman was trying to kill Superman. The reason why he went so hard on this, and this is me just taking it all in, and I've seen this movie God knows how many freaking times already, and I
Mhm.
every time I see it, I see something new in it, and it's the fact that Bruce, the one who he really wants to take this out on, that we don't even see in this film, the person he is trying to release this anger, he wants to quote unquote kill, but no, that's against his code. He would never kill. Um, that's the Joker for what he's done, right? That's all this other stuff, all these other villains that he's been wanting to. Me personally, I felt like he allowed himself to do this one because I never thought he was going to kill Superman. Even
Mhm.
if he had the chance to, I don't think he ever was because I think it was a thing of this is who I can really just let everything out, pummel him to the ground, and get to a point where I always thought, even if Lois was there or not, he would always never go to that length, even if it was for mankind. I
That no,
could,
that's a good theory there. I mean, again, we don't know, right? Like,
yeah.
but that's not a bad theory, because you're right. Like all of a sudden he's gonna just break that rule, like type thing. Um,
If you really, this is the only time he can literally, like, everyone talks about we'll go back to the animated series, how Superman is so like they kind of like nerfed him right until that last battle where he's fighting Darkseid and he's like, I can let loose. This is that moment for Bruce slash Batman where he can let loose, so to say, one because he knows the weakness, And mind you, how he calls him the weakness, not the thing that's going to kill him. You know,
Mm,
I found his weakness, and that to me is you know how Zach is, man. He's very play on words, and
mhm.
that to me is where a lot of people kind of miss that message. It's on what Batman was really trying to do to them.
Yeah, no, for sure. That this is the where it's like timeline wise, this is where it gets funny because it's like the question is where is Joker in all this, right? Like where was he? To know that would kind of give more highlight to what you're kind of explaining here.
Yeah.
Um, because
We,
again, the question
we,
is,
we would have to say it has to be after the Robin died, because we see the in the Ultimate Edition we see the suit with the ha-has
right? Oh, for
on the
sure,
Robin suit.
for sure, for sure. No doubt about that. But see,
Yeah.
this is where we get into the. This is why it sucks that we never got the air cut,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because these are all things. There's so much more to this story plot than meets the eye at the moment for what we have. Because there's the whole story plot of he broke in his teeth. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like when you're talking about how angry he got, right?
Yep.
He breaks in Joker's teeth. That's how mad he was. Yeah, he didn't kill him, but then again, this is where it's like, man, there's a world there that exists that we don't know exactly what exists, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't
But
know.
as a
But I
fan,
will say this. I will say
yeah.
this. Again, that's why I said it's a good theory because we really don't know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
here, on the other side of that, this is the other theory, and this is in this side of the theory we have more context here, right? And it
Right.
would be this. Like I said, when he looks at Superman, he degrades him to the point where he says he's not even a man, almost like he's trying to find the reason to why he can kill him. You're not even a human being, bro. So me
Yeah.
killing you makes no difference. That's how much you could almost say like, no, I think he was, because he had convinced himself that like you're not even this God character, so you're not good. That's essentially what he's saying there. When he's saying you're not God, you're not good, bro. And then when he's saying you're not even
I,
a man, you're
you
that
see that? You see that? What you're saying right there, man?
Mhm.
That you're not good. That to me is why I feel like he's saying these things. Obviously, he's pushing it all out to Superman, but I still feel like it's that battle of
100%. Again, that's
I'm
what I'm
not
saying.
good.
He's not telling it to Superman. Like
He's saying it to
what he's
himself.
saying, everything that he says doesn't matter to Superman. It matters more to himself. 100%. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I feel he's trying to convince himself of the very
Yeah.
action he's probably about to take, or probably not, or just struggling to take, right? Um, and again, that's why I say like it just sucks. We'll never really know.
Yeah.
But what we do know
Well,
for
we
sure is
might.
that
We might.
with the words he spoke,
Yeah.
you know that he was convincing himself of why he could kill him. Is the
Yeah.
point I'm trying to make, right? Like it's not necessarily that. Like we said, he didn't just say it to Superman just to say it to hurt his feelings right before he kills him. It's
There's people out there that really do think that. Oh, he
well,
was
100%,
just he was
100%.
just trash talking him. Nah,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
more
It's
to
like,
it,
no,
man.
I mean that's yeah, that was some crazy trash talk, but it's not trash talk. It's him. It's him trying to justify to himself why he would be able to actually kill this guy.
Yeah.
Again, you're not God. You're not good. You're not even a man. Your life has no value. That's what he's saying when he says you're not a man. What he's trying to tell himself is your life has no value, so I should just be able to kill you. Again, we'll never really know, but we can. But I like the theory, and I'll probably stand with you on that. I think
Yeah.
that's probably right. The only thing people will probably argue against that would be like, well, he just not too long after that, he mowed down all those people in the trucks with that tear gun out of his
Yeah, but you
Batwing.
see to add more fuel to the fire, and I know we're kind of like we're
Yeah, now
going
we're kind of
away.
like
Yeah. But to add more fuel to that fire, just so I can add this to it, because it kind of just rolled in my head. That's the whole he couldn't solve the issue with Robin, right? So we see again. We don't know that side of the story. We only know what we see, which is the suit and all that stuff, and the note and the letters. You let your family die, all this stuff. When that dude, I forgot his name, that he's driving in the beginning of the film to get to him, and he dies in the building because of Superman. Now it's like you couldn't right the wrong of Robin, but now you can right this wrong. That's why you convince yourself you do that because you couldn't do this one, but now you're able to accomplish it. You found the weakness. You found it. Like it's almost all tied in there.
Right.
It's man, Zach really orchestrated this thing
Yeah.
to man.
No, for sure, for sure. No, there's layers to this. That's why I love these movies, man. It's not just entertainment, you know what I'm saying? And it's not just these like bland stories or you know, at face value stories. It's like, no, man, there's more depth to them. There's more context. There's more substance.
Yeah,
There's more to dig into, philosophically, ideologically, theologically, uh, all in this vehicle of just comic book characters, right? Um, and but yeah, like obviously like we said, we kind of steered off. Bring it
yeah,
back into the more, I guess, the more theological, more gospel-esque aesthetics that are existing in this world that Zach is building.
yeah,
Um, if you remember last time, I think it was Penn who asked, who's Lois in the movies, right? Or obviously, we were talking about Man of Steel. I feel like when it gets into BVS, it's more there's more form to who she is in the sense of like who she kind of represents biblically, and at that point it would be in a sense the disciples, the believers, those who are actually following him, right? Defending him,
the
willing to
main the
stand up
main
for him.
believer, yeah.
Yeah, so she's definitely representative of the believing side of humanity, right? And essentially the bride of Christ, right? Because uh, we'll get there when we get there. So I feel like that's who she represents. When you're looking at Bruce, he's obviously representative of the side of humanity that doesn't believe, right? That are obviously questioning, is Christ really who he says he is?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that doesn't believe. I would say that right there, that he the question, and the main thing that I mean, again, like I said this last time, I'm rereading the Bible, and it's all about the not to question God, but it's more like just to believe that God is all good and God will take care of you. Whereas Bruce is more of the well, why is he all good? Why would he take care of us when there's a chance that he can flip a switch and not take care of us? It's that it's almost like he's just questioning it, and he doesn't because
Well, see,
it's tough to kind of decipher it.
I'm gonna tell you why I don't think that's the case. And there's kind of like I'm gonna kind of take from something else, kind of back up what I'm saying here, because
Mm,
technically it's not established in this universe, but there are other iterations, and I think it's even already been said publicly by somebody who's written for Batman or something like that, whatever. Um, it's known that Batman is I guess, a Catholic belief system wise. He's quote unquote a Catholic, right? So he believes in God, right? Um, the reason, again, I'm not so sure it's that he's struggling with, again, and who God is. It's or any God for that matter, right? So we're talking about a man who's well learned, right? He's
yeah.
well learned. He's well taught, whatever, blah blah blah. So I'm sure he has plenty of knowledge. I mean, even when you're seeing the way he talks, things that he's saying, the notions of how he deciphers things and things about things. Um, I would assume he has knowledge of even other gods, the Greek gods, things of that nature. So I say that to say, because again, if he did not, because his battle isn't the same battle Lex is having, right? Well, that's why I wanted to. This is why I was pointing out the theodicy, the theodicy thing. Why Bruce is more depicting him representative of that in a sense. But also from a different angle, because Lex is more to the core of it. Lex is more to the core of what you're saying, of why he says, that's why I learned long ago that if God was all good, he cannot be all powerful. And if he's all powerful, he cannot be all good, right? Because he's made up his mind on what he, how he thinks God operates, right? Because God is tribal. God does choose sides, right? There's things he's saying, right? He's very much set in the way he's viewing, right? God, for that matter, right? Meanwhile, Bruce he's battling with the thought of it, but not because he's confused on who God is, but because he's not so sure Superman is who he says he is, right? Which is the distinct difference, right? And the reason that's kind of key is because further on, I believe, not only does Bruce or Batman represent the unbeliever, I believe he because this is what we have to realize. It's not that he when I say, actually, let me put it like this, right? I said he represents the humanity that doesn't believe. What I meant was this. I didn't mean to say doesn't believe in God. What I mean is this: he doesn't believe. So in the Gospels, they believe in God, but you have those that don't believe that Christ says who he says he is, right? So they believe in God, they believe in the God of Abraham, they believe in the God of Moses, but they don't believe Christ is who he says he is. They don't believe he is the Son of God. They don't believe he's the Messiah, you know what I'm saying? Things of that nature, right? That's who Batman represents, right? So that's different from an unbeliever as a whole, right? Where that's what Lex is. Lex doesn't believe, period, because the way he sees it, like I said, it's if God were true, this is the truth about him, right? And he because God is tribal, right? Whatever, all that. So he has his definitive look, but it's not even, and actually Lex, it's not even that he doesn't believe, it's just that he doesn't believe it to be the truth to what it's supposed to be, right? And I'm going to actually get into who I think Lex represents within this gospel of Superman, but Batman, again, he represents those non-believers, but I believe he's also depicting someone close to like a Paul figure. And I say that because Batman, in a sense, does try to kill Superman, right? He does try to kill Christ, or the Messiah. Where when you get to Paul and his story, right, he is persecuting Christians throughout his beginning of his campaign when he's still Saul, right? And then when he finally comes face to face with the great white hope, Jesus Christ, whatever, and Jesus tells him, why are you persecuting me, right? And then he comes to realization that I was just about to kill the Messiah, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, or I was about to kill. I was persecuting, he realized the truth, right? And he finally believes, right? But his mission was to persecute the church, right? So I feel like that's kind of who Batman is. The story plot around him is designed in a way that it's it's a mixture of a kind of like a Paul type of story, but also maybe even representative of even the Roman aspect to this. And I say that because I think to myself, even the Roman soldiers that did crucify Christ, that were there for the crucifixion of Christ, that they did persecute him, right? And they actually, were part of the mocking him, the king of the Jews, whatever, blah, 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 right? And then when the occurrence of the actual crucifixion takes place, and there's that rumble in the earth, and everything just, there was a atmospheric change in real time, and where they come to the realization this man was the Son of God, right? And they come to believe, being Roman soldiers, right? So I believe that's kind of who Batman represents in the story plot. It's like he's not a believer. He's in the sense of he's questioning if this guy is really. He doesn't believe he is who he says he is. Not that he's questioning it. He doesn't believe he is who he says he is, right? And again, that's why when you get to the end, he says, "You're not even you were never a god. You're not even a man, right?" But so when you get to Lex, his figure in this again gospel of Superman is he's representative of the Pharisees, right? He is the Pharisee in the story, meaning again he's made up his own doctrine. When you look at the Pharisees in the gospel, The reality is they were so corrupt, but not only were they corrupt, but they also were they also perverted the very truth of who God was for the people, right? And they essentially made their own God. They made their own religion, opposite of what and this is gonna sound crazy, but like even like Judaism as you see it today isn't the same Judaism or Hebrew Jew from back in the day. It's probably more eminent to, or it probably resembles more of the Pharisee Sadducee type version of it than it does the original, right? But all that to say that I feel like in the storyline, Lex is the Pharisee, right? Hence why he's actually the one. So you're right in a way, right? So let's kind of go back, right? Batman necessarily isn't set out to kill Superman, not initially, like right, like that's actually what we're missing here. Batman wasn't set out to kill Superman, but he definitely did not believe he was who he claimed to be. That's where Batman stood. While Lex is the Pharisee figure, already knowing and dictating this guy, I want him dead, because he goes against the very fabric of the truth that I've laid out, right? That's the problem he's struggling with Superman, right? And you kind of even see kind of notes of this even in the new Superman movie, right? It's the notion that Lex can't live with the fact that there is someone this good, right? Or even though, like, obviously, I feel like the Superman isn't that great of a depiction of that. But so to take it back to BVS, there's no way this Kal-El, this Clark Kent, because he already knows he's Clark Kent as well, right? There's no way this guy is this good. And I'm going to show the world the fraud you are, right? Like that's his whole thing. That's what the Pharisees were set out to do, right? They at every chance they could they thought that they can get Jesus, right? Like, hey, ask him this question. He's gonna fumble the ball here, and we're gonna expose him. But then they'd get exposed, right? And every time they tried to expose him, they'd get exposed, right? And even to the very end, right, when he's before the Senate and or before the hearing, and all that, when they're trying to when he's before the Sanhedrin, I'm sorry, right? Same thing. They're trying to get him to slip up and to try and expose that hey, you're not who you claim you are. That's who Lex represents in the story. He is set out to the way the Pharisees were set out to destroy. They wanted to get Christ, kill Christ. That same spirit is what's animated in Lex in this film, in this story plot. Is he is set out to kill Super. He's just not only just kill him, but expose him, right? Like, I need to dethrone you. That's essentially, because you're not the God that I see, right? And that's key, because again, same thing with the Pharisees. The problem with the Pharisees is that they had perversed who God was, the truth of who God was, that the existence of not even just Jesus, but even John the Baptist and a few others, but like Jesus, though, in that storyline, again, it went against the very narrative, right? The fact that he would perform miracles on the Sabbath, right? He would do things that were actually true to what he knows God the Father would want, but it went against the very customs and traditions and religion that they had built, for themselves and the people. And this is the problem Lex was struggling with in the film, is that this is who God is to me. And if you really are a God, you are proving me wrong right now. And I can't live with that, So that's who Lex represents in the story plot. I thought that's, again, interesting when you see the story kind of just play out. And it's, again, circling around that discussion of false God. Is he God? Is he the God? Is he this man he claims to be? So you have Lois Lane, who's the believer, fighting to, in the movie, to defend who Superman is, to prove that he is good, to preach the gospel in a sense, set forth the good, do that which, it's the same good that the guy is doing. I'm going to do on what I can do. Batman, again, is representative of that, who just didn't believe Clark is who he says he is, but not set out to kill him just yet. While Lex, being the Pharisee, manipulating things to be what they are, to be that which allows for the persecution to come and to get the Roman soldier to come do their bidding, to come crucify Christ, because the Jews can't.
Another good example on that, real quick, though, is because you kind of just with you saying it, it's almost like Batman kind of wanted to, I guess, it's like he wanted to almost like make a, for instance, with the Romans with Jesus, they wanted to prove that he is not that guy. You kind of touched on it. And Batman was almost like doing that within himself, but making it more than, because it's easy. What I'm trying to get at is that like Batman had a chance where he could have just straight up hit him with the kryptonite, killed him, and proved to everybody like, yeah, he's not a god. But he really, not to say he drug it out, but he made it seem like he had to almost make this presentation to prove that he's not the god, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, no,
Almost.
you're right on the money with it. It's again, you're right. You have to wonder. You, it's because even though throughout the beginning of the film, he's clearly trying to figure out who's the white Portuguese, right, or what's the white Portuguese, and he's
Yeah.
eventually we find out that he is trying to get the kryptonite, right?
Yeah.
The crazy part is he does see Superman as an enemy, but it's not clear that he was gonna really act on it right away.
Right.
Right? Not in the same way that once the the explosion at the Senate hearing takes place, and then the letters of Wally that all of a sudden just magically all show up now,
Yeah.
right? Like just perfect timing, right? Like Lex being the puppet master, he is the manipulator of all this, right? And this is why I say Lex is the Pharisees, because again, the Roman soldiers really weren't set out to do anything with Christ until they were manipulated to by the Pharisees, is my whole point, right? It took the
Yeah.
Pharisees to manipulate the scenario to manipulate the people and manipulate the Roman government to do their bidding for them, right? So
Right.
Lex operates in the same manner, right? It's like, this is what I want, but I'm not going to do it myself. Because I can't do it myself. So I'm going to have this guy do it, who for sure has the
But you
cojones.
see, but even with that, like how I
Mhm.
was saying about Batman, I feel like Lex knows that if Batman was the one to unveil that that Superman is a false god, it's almost like the Romans proving to the people that this guy who's supposed to be your messiah is a lie. And if a guy like Batman, the vigilante, is the one to unveil that, it'll mean more than
Oh no, yes,
Lex
no,
doing
a
it
hundred
himself.
percent, 100. Right, right. No, you're on the money with it. No, that's 100% right, because the Roman Empire represented something in that time, right?
Right, right,
For
right,
them to
right,
be the
right.
ones to, and essentially dethrone this guy, make the mockery of this man who claims to be this, but he's clearly not. Yeah, same thing here,
Yeah.
right? Lex is using the Bruce, and he's been using him from the jump. Now, that's of note though too, right? Because one has to wonder if the manipulation happened was happening even way before, right? Like meaning, yes, we
I
know Bruce
I don't
feels a certain
think
type of way
the
about.
thing is though, I don't
Mhm.
think it was a manipulation. I think he allowed himself he allowed himself to use that as an excuse. And again, you may touch on like, oh, there's no proof of that, but
Mhm.
it's just knowing the character of Batman to
Yeah.
me, like he- even with everything, all the notes and everything that he got, like, was he really that blind? Like to me, it's more fathomable that he just allowed himself to be blind to then go after like it was almost like an excuse. Like, oh yeah,
So
look,
I would
you
say
know.
the reason that could be right why there might be a difference here between, let's just say, okay, let's talk about it. Joker, right?
Hmm.
He never kills Joker. Apart from Robin, and not to say that this was little to nothing, that it means nothing, right? It means a lot, obviously. But so Joker probably takes one personal person in your life. from the Batman side of things, where the other one takes thousands of people that were personally close to you from the Bruce Wayne side of your world. So, which in a sense means more, right? Because it's like it really highlights the vulnerability of Bruce Wayne just as a man, right? Because when he's Batman, I'm sure he feels unstoppable, invincible. Hence why, like, even though he's shocked, like, and kind of like almost like, yo, what are you doing here, right? When he's trying to get the kryptonite and Superman just, he just smacks right into Superman like a, strong steel pole, and the Batmobile goes sliding to the side, right? And Superman opens the doors, but you see the invincibility of him as Batman, right? Because he just stands up like, all right, bro, what's up? You're like,
I think it's more of he's realizing he isn't invincible anymore. I think it's more of that.
But see, that's what I'm saying. But that's why. So, okay, for instance, this is how I know what I'm gonna tell you why I'm saying what I'm saying, right? So, remember when he says, "I got to go break into Lex to Lex's house, whatever, blah blah." I'm gonna have to put on the suit again. He wants to keep putting on the suit because I feel that's where he feels most protected. Now, yeah, I agree with you. Like, yes, it is that. It's right in the beginning, right, where Alfred tells Bruce like, "Oh, but things have changed."
Yeah.
And then I can't verbatim, I can't remember the line, but the gods throw thunderbolts, blah blah blah, and then it turns good men cruel, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. You're not wrong. What I'm saying is, though, you notice that there's something. He still feels more protected by the suit than he does without it. To the point that he wants to use it for everything. And Alfred has to convince him like it was Bruce Wayne who got the information of the Portuguese, whatever. And it's Bruce Wayne who's been invited. You know what I'm saying? Like you're okay to be Bruce Wayne still. You can still be Bruce Wayne. And still do what you got to do.
Yeah, it's almost like Batman or Bruce. He in this notion he feels safer in his isolation than he is letting himself in. Letting himself out there with Bruce. With Bruce, you saw he talked to the Russian guy in the fight thing. When he showed up there, he met low-key a Wonder Woman, Diana. Like he had to actually become a part of something to unveil everything. Where it's like with Batman, it's just that brute force of I can shut myself down and just focus.
No, 100%, 100%. And so like again, that's why, and that's another layer to this, right? When you're talking about the masks we put on to, the things that we put on to kind of like protect ourselves, from the very thing we need to face, right? Because again, when you're looking at, and it's not to make light of, again, the death of Robin, because again, it's still something obviously that does affect them, right?
Yeah.
But when you're looking at, like, let's say, as Bruce Wayne the child, he couldn't protect his parents, right? There's nothing he could do about the death of his parents. And then here he is, Bruce Wayne the man, and there was nothing he could do about Jack and the rest of the people that worked for him in that building. Wally, who had to help get him out of that steel beam and know that this man is paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of his life, or maybe from the, I don't know, dies down, I guess, but so it's almost like there's more damage done in a sense when I'm just Bruce Wayne. And this is why I say it sucks that we never got this side of the story of the whole like, a continuation to that, which I'm sure we would have gotten more of that in Ben Affleck's The Batman.
We probably would have got the whole story.
That it sucks that we're kind of like still like in.
And even in the haircut, I feel like we would have got a little bit pieces of it.
Right.
maybe flashbacks or something,
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. So that's why I think you're not wrong. Again, like I said, obviously, yeah, Bruce Wayne was uh, felt vulnerable, but I think you're right. Like, yeah, again, it's like Lex. I still feel is manipulating him. I only say that because, but manipulate him in a way not completely, because I do feel a lot of it is on him. It's
Yeah.
not like he's being manipulated because it's his own emotions that are in the way of allowing him to just process the truth for
it
what
it
it is.
it lines with his feel of like, I want to release this. He's giving me the quote unquote, because the only reason why I keep coming back to that is
Mhm,
because, and it's a character that, I mean, you've touched on him a little bit,
mhm,
but not many people give him the credit in this film. And shout out to Zach to doing this, and that's Alfred.
mhm.
And one of the major conversations we see in BVS is between Alfred and Bruce. And I would say 90% of the film, it's Bruce trying to convince Alfred that what he's doing is right.
Right.
And Alfred is trying to convince Bruce that it's not right what he's doing. It's easier to do it this way,
Mhm.
to blame Superman. And that's why that whole, when he saves Martha in the warehouse. And I know I kind of jumped ahead here, but he saves Martha in the warehouse. He jumps into the bat wing, and the first thing he says there is that, I wouldn't be where I am today without you, Alfred. Like, he almost apologizes to Alfred, like admitting, like, you're
Oh
right.
no, 100%. And
You know?
here's even more into that though. This is why again, the Bruce Wayne Batman aspect to this and what it represents in the film is it's really a lot because um and here's the thing. I think the reason why he's also tussling with the existence of Superman is because I think it's the very fact that you have this guy who essentially again destroyed almost half of us, not on his own, but you know what I'm saying, like, but the consequences of the battle that they had with
Yeah.
Zod in Metropolis, right? It destroyed so much, and a lot of people died and paid the price for it, right? And then obviously his own Wayne Tower in Metropolis, right? Um, and but so like you look at that, and yet this man is being worshipped, right? Like there's still people that do believe this guy is, you know, a savior. He's hope. He's hope for the world. And meanwhile, here I've been fighting crime in Gotham, and I'm still the bad guy. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm still, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And probably even more so because throughout the years he probably got, maybe even after the whole ha 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 part, he gets more brutal and more violent and all that. And here's what's crazy to even like cement what I'm saying here is that keep in mind in the beginning of the film, in his first appearance, he's technically right. He technically saves these women from being sex trafficked,
Yeah.
but instead of being grateful, they're afraid.
They're terrified.
But what do they call him?
The devil.
The devil, right? That's who they place him with. Like that's what they view him as, right? That's how much fear he I get, emulated, and probably, but again, probably who knows why, right? Like who knows? We'll never really know the full extent why. Obviously, yeah, we know he tortures the guy upstairs. We know he brands him, but it's not like they were witnessing that also. You know what I'm saying? They must have witnessed more to say, to be so scared that they kept themselves in the cages. And when the cops
Yeah.
got there, they're like, no, the devil is upstairs. You know what I'm saying? He's still here, the devil. You know what I'm saying? So you're looking at a man who's depicted as the devil. He's looked at as that's how they view him. Meanwhile, you got this other guy who saves a kitten out of a tree.
Yeah.
And they read a pup piece editorial about him, right? And he's this good guy. You know what I'm saying? And you know that that's still the case because even in real time, the headlines change, right? And it's this very statue, false god, right? Where there's finally people coming out saying, like, exposing that no, there's another side to this guy that nobody's bold enough to talk about. But Wally said, I gotta get the message out there, and he puts false god, right? And then that's when Perry dares to make the article and say, title, "Love Affair with Man in the Sky," over or something. I forgot. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Question mark, right?
The Perry White, yeah.
Yeah. Where so all that to say, you can imagine that it was up until that point that Superman was this good guy, even though that there's clearly conversation happening around him. The Senate hearings are still happening, right? All that stuff. But it wasn't until that moment, false god, love affair with Man in the Sky, over, question, right? That's when the narrative starts changing. But what's interesting about that is the comparison, what I think of what Batman's struggling with, and this is the point I'm making, is when he's looking at Superman and the good he's doing in the world and the hope he's offering the world, it's convicting him of the very thing he's failed to do for all these years. That's what I think he's also grappling with. I've been fighting these criminals for how knows how long, and yet I haven't done what this man has done.
I think it's also he's done it so long this way that he's like, there's no other way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't be that good because I've been doing this for so long and it only works one way.
Right.
So you're gonna slip up. That's
Right.
That's what Batman keeps doing. He's like, you're gonna slip up, and it's like, slip up already, man. Do it.
So I think that's again, what I like about that depiction is that it's us, right? That's why I say he's representative of us, right? Because when you look at Christ calls you to question your very character, who you are, right? When you see everything that Christ was and what he did and who he is, and you realize like you pale in comparison, right? Like it brings this conviction about you, right? Like, man, like I fall short of what it really truly means to be good, and I think
or if I was ever good.
Or if I was ever good. Exactly. That's right. That's right. Right. Because it could also convict you to the point of realizing like, oh, I was never really good, and I think this is what Superman is causing in Batman's world also. Right.
Yeah.
So there's so much happening with Bruce. That's why when you ask me, could he easily be manipulated? I think to a certain degree, yes, because there's all these notions of emotions and thoughts that are taking place that could cause him to be manipulated in a way, but like, again, not directly because he's still making the choices, but in a way that he's not thinking clearly, but again, that's why I think it's funny how I think he embodies us. Bruce and Batman he's us in the storyline.
100%.
He's representative of the people, all right, who are not where we're supposed to be. Lois Lane is trying to get us there. We're all on Bruce Wayne's somewhere between Bruce Wayne and Lois. We're somewhere there. We're either where Bruce Wayne is at or we're somewhere in the between. Yeah. And there's some of us that are on Lois's page, but a lot of us aren't there, right?
Yeah, there's the blind belief, and then there's the questionable,
right?
The questionable belief, where it's like, yeah, I believe it, but why? Right. Why?
Right. Now, what I like, now another aspect to the story that, not that I like, but another aspect to the story that I feel, again, another thing that represents that of the Gospels, when you are looking at, there's two characters that I feel depict this. When you look at Wally or the African woman, right?
Yeah.
That I feel in the story are almost symbolical of Judas, right? Because they were willing to give him up, or willing to lie, or willing to, to work with Lex, work with the Pharisees, to the downfall of Christ. I feel Wally falls more into the into that image, but the reason I say I think it's both of them, and it's, again, I say these things, and I'm not saying that everything is 100% concrete the same,
Right.
but it's the way they kind of like emulate the same or have almost similar.
I think what's most beautiful about it is more dependent on how and who watches the film.
100%.
You can get different, you can get the different stories, because right now you have said 15 different things, I have said 15 different
Yeah,
things, and the thing is, each time we watch it, we see it in a different limelight. And now I'm
yeah,
actually excited to rewatch it, because now I'm going to watch it with how you have said certain things. So now it may either intertwine what I said and what you said, or it might just give me a whole different perspective now on how I watch it. And
right,
this is something that Zach does not get credit for, man. And it's like, this is why when we preach this, we need him back, is because we've literally told the story of this film,
right,
right? 15 different ways, with so many other ways to continue to depict this film.
right.
You know? Like, no one is doing that right now.
No, for
Nobody.
sure, for sure. Um, and it's funny because again, it's like you're right. There's so many, and that's why I said like I'm pointing out what I'm pointing out, but it's not to say that this is the only thing about it. Like there's so
Right.
many. That's why I
Right.
said earlier. Like, it's like there's layers to this. That's why I say like there's like philosophical things you can grasp, theological, ideological, just so many different components to the story that are really just like mind blowing. Like that it's like, yo, how can so much of this be in one film? And it is, and it is,
Yeah.
and not, but like then it's like, but the crazy part is like it's not just this one film, because when you watch all the three films together, it's like, again, that's why I say like a gospel of sorts. It's like it's a magnum opus. You know, it's insane. But so I know I put this background because there's two things that I look at this, but like more so the one on the bottom, right? Because that's the one from BVS, and that's that. Earlier we're talking about everyone was battling with what they were battling within, right? Like there was an inner battle,
Yeah.
and that's why every character was actually having that battle. Bruce Wayne was having that battle. Lois was having that battle, right? Like, and it's that question she asked Clark in the beginning, right? Like, I just don't know if this works, right? Like, you being who you are, and whatever, like us, whatever, because the notions of there's like a conflict of interest, right? And then just now, like, am I right to still believe that you're the good guy, like, or am I blind, or like there's so much happening there within her. And then you have Superman, same thing, right? Like he knows he's doing good. In his heart, he knows he's doing everything he's doing to be good, but yet like the doubt and the people that are still like in a sense undermining what he's doing, what he stands for, it causes him to somewhat like or have this conflict, right? Where to the point where he calls his mom, like that's how much it's bothering him, right? Like what's happening, what's he seeing on the news, all these people talking about him, and he's like, what the hell's going on? And but you see this images like this, right? Where it's like, even in this moment where he just saved this girl out of a burning building, and here you have all these people in a sense worshiping him, and he still has this conflict, like, like how come, I actually do wonder, like, what is the question here? Like what is going on in his head right here? You know what I mean? Like,
Do I deserve this
do I
praise?
deserve this, right? Because here I am on the other side. People are, saying I'm not the good guy, and that I should be put into question. But here I am, and these people, they worship me because I just, whatever. But now on the other
I think
hand,
it's that, and I think it's a little bit of, this is not what I'm trying to be. I just know that this is the right thing to do.
so that's so right. That's just I like that you just said that, because that was my next point. but from almost a slightly different angle, but like similar context, right? It's so obviously the people are worshiping him. They're already like they're essentially elevating him to what they want him to be for him or for them. Meanwhile, he's in a sense saying like that's not who I'm trying to be, or in a sense, the time is not yet, right? And it kind of for me just resembles that when you have Christ, you know, when they're trying to elevate him as king, they want to make him king. They want him to usurp the Roman Empire. They want him to, you know what I'm saying? They want him to be that kind of savior. That's the Messiah they wanted him to be at the moment. Like, you gotta save us from the oppression, right? Like, and he's like, it's not time yet. You know, like that's not, you know, it's not time for that just yet. You know, but yeah, he's still doing things that are like good for the people. But what they want, right? The freedom from the oppression of the Roman Empire. That's not what I'm here for at the moment. It's not that time. So it's like I just think about like those moments, even like in the Passion of Christ, where like they're all trying to like touch him. That's also what I think about here is like, you know, when it says Christ would move through the crowds and people would like reach out to him and touch him, you know what I'm saying? Just because, you know, and then some people would even try and touch his, the lady who touches the end of his garment just to get healed from what she was dealing with. And she does get healed, right? But everybody's like surrounding him. That's to me what I think, I believe this is what also what symbolically, visually, this is what Zach is showing here. It's that same context as when Jesus would walk through the town squares or through the towns or the whatever, and everybody would come and gather around him, but like in a sense suffocate him, you know, like, and he'd have to like, he was just, you know, I gotta keep going, you know, so he like had to move around, but everybody was trying to touch him, like, because they knew he was who he said he was, because those people did believe that, oh, you are the Messiah, you are the, you know what I'm saying, you are the, you know, the king, whatever. Same thing here. It's like I feel like that's what this image represents. It's like, oh, it's, you know, it's our savior, it's our hope, it's Superman, right? Like, and they're all just touching him, you know, because they're in awe, whatever. I feel like that's what this embodies, this image. Again, when we're talking about visuals that are in a sense theologically based, you know, that to me is what that is. Now, again, even when you get to the Senate hearings, right? Same thing. To me, that is, you know, the Lex via the Wally brings, you know, Superman to the people, to be judged in front of the people, in front of the Sanhedrin, in front of the, you know. Now again, this is why I say it's not completely the same, right? Because at that, if you're biblically, by the time Christ is put in front of the you know, the Roman or the Roman governor before Pilate and all that stuff, he's already like captured, right? He surrenders himself, right? But in this film, it's the same thing, right? Superman decides to surrender, right? Like the same way he does in the first film, right? He says, I surrender to mankind, whatever, blah, blah. We discussed how that was in the first one, in Man of Steel. But this is the same thing, right? He's like, all right, I'm going to surrender to the will of the people. You know, I'm going to come before the senators and all that. I'll come and speak my piece, whatever. So there's it's this level of submission of submission that you see in that court hearing. But I feel like that's what that court hearing embodies, right? It's again manufactured by Lex, right? Manipulated by Lex, that court hearing, right? Obviously to his own way of things, right? With the whole explosion and all that. So
I hate to have to do this, but I do have to get going.
You have to get going.
Yeah.
Okay.
We definitely have to do a rain check though, because I want to. There's so much to depict left, and we haven't even touched Zach's film yet, dude. Like the Justice League yet.
The Justice League one, yeah.
Yeah.
You know. And I'll be honest, there's not much after this. I don't know, but if you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah. No, I definitely do. Like I'm pushing. I'm way over pushing, right? Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, you take care, man. I appreciate you hopping on. It's always good to have you here to just bounce these ideas with you.
Of course, man.
You know, break this stuff down. But yeah, we'll definitely do this next time. And obviously the next one is Justice League.
Yeah.
I'll definitely wrap this one up though. Catch the rest of it, I guess.
For sure.
You know, but yeah, bro, appreciate you hopping on, man. And it's always a pleasure to have you here, brother.
I appreciate you having me, man. And keep up the good work, brother. Keep it up, man.
We trying, dog. We try.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All
All right,
right,
but you
man. Be
stay safe
easy.
out there, right? Be easy.
Yes, sir.
All right, for sure.
Don't forget.
Okay. So where's the other one? Okay, here we go. So yeah, like I said, this scene to me is very much embodying the Senate, or not the scene. I'm sorry, the Senate hearing in the movie is that of like Christ before the Christ before Pilate or Christ before the Sanhedrin. Boom, it blows up. All that because again, those hearings were all manipulated by Lex to happen, right? Um, so again, that Senate hearing for me is like the hearing before the Sanhedrin, before Pilate, before Herod, um, but that's also true, I think, even when you have that scene um, when Superman has to kneel before Lex on the and that rooftop, right? Later into the film, right? Um, it's that same sequence, right? Because and probably more so then, because it's even more of a moment of surrender and submission because Lex has him by whatever the way he manipulates that scenario where he has his mother and all that. But it's bringing him to heel in a sense where he thinks he has the victory in the same way that the Pharisees thought they had their victory. Like we got him, he's here before us, smacking him around, mocking him, giving him over to Pilate so that the Romans could kill him, whatever. Same thing. They think they have the victory and all that. Same kind of concept, I believe. So there's that depiction that again very reminiscent of that of the gospel there. Another image or a moment in this movie where I said that to me is kind of similar to the Man of Steel movie where it's that moment when Clark is talking to the priest and it's even more blatant in that movie because then you right behind them that glass, the stained glass, has that image of the prayer in Gethsemane, and same thing, right? But in this movie, especially since it's actually closer to the death moment, I believe this is the scene that depicts that when Clark is in the mountaintop and he's talking to his father, right? Same, even more close in the sense of that it's in the Garden of Gethsemane. Christ is talking to the Father, right? Father, take this, come whatever, that moment of like, heart to heart with his father in the garden, right before he knows what's about to come is going to come. Similar moment here, right? Superman has to go to the mountaintop to see his father, to talk to his father, right? And have that heart to heart moment. It's very spiritual, this scene, because we know Jonathan is dead. We know Jonathan Kent is dead. So it's like, what's happening here? Is this a vision? Is this all in Clark's head? Is this a conversation he wishes he had that he's just depicting in his own mind? Or is there something really spiritual happening here? Like again, like an actual vision of sorts, that he's actually there talking to his father, uh very interesting scene. Very interesting scene, and I like it a lot for this very reason. Um again, it embodies to me that moment of like seeking the father, and so it's quite interesting to see that. So I feel like this scene depicts that a lot, especially right before what's going to come, and that's obviously his own death. Not that he knows it's coming, because this is shortly after the explosion, but shortly after this, it's the Lois Lane getting thrown off the building, has a saber. Like shortly after all this kind of follows after this moment, right before we get to the death of Superman. But that the other part that I also feel like it also kind of emulates to me personally also is there's also that other moment when Jesus goes to the mountaintop with Peter and John, right? I feel like it also represents that too, mountain wise, right? Like up to the mountaintop. That actually embodies that too. It's him talking to his father that to me embodies more of the praying the Gethsemane moment. Now, after this moment, right? It's like I said, it goes into the the rooftop scene again. That moment where he has to um kneel before Lex, whatever, to surrender in a sense, and surrendering, right? Jesus is the same, right? He surrenders himself to the Pharisees, to the Pharisees, to the Sanhedrin, Pilate, Herod, whatever. Uh, as far as like what was going to happen, I guess going forward, knowing he was going, as far as giving his life because he knew that he had to, right? Um, Now, interestingly enough, right, I say this right now. Obviously, Lex makes Superman face Batman, right? That manipulates that to happen. And again, that's in its own thing. It's its own thing. Although that conversation between Lex and Superman is very crucial to that theodicy concept. No no undertone or note in the films that are happening throughout the whole movie. But when Superman faces Batman, I feel like this is another again complexity happening here. How I said earlier that I think Batman representing us looking at Superman in a way that convicts him of who he is because Superman is doing everything right, doing all these good things, whatever, and is being recognized for it, right? The only thing that they got on him, or that they're trying to get him on, which again is very similar to the Christ story, is they're trying to get him on more legalities, right? Because it's like they can't say he's not good because he's saving people's lives. They're questioning him on the legality of things, right? Now, here's the crazy part about that Senate hearing that's also kind of true about the Pilate hearing. Christ with Pilate, Superman with the Senate. In the Senate hearing, the truth was going to be what it was, and that's that they realized like there's really no fault in Superman, right? And the ladies realizing who the fault's really lying with, right? Obviously, it plays out different in the movie, but nonetheless, the reason that's a key note though, is because again, there's really nothing Superman is actually guilty of. He's done nothing but good, right? And then so that's the same thing that Pilate is faced with when he's when Christ is before him and he's judging him, and he's trying to get them to tell him what it is that he actually did wrong, right? And if you've seen the movies, if you know the part, the story I'm talking about, there's that part where he puts his hand inside in the basin. He says, "I wash my hands," because he knows that he's about to kill this innocent man, and in fact, he tries to do everything in his power to not kill this man, right? To not kill Christ, right? He's like, I don't see no fault in him, right? To the point where he sends him back, right? He's like, when they first bring him to Pilate, Christ to Pilate, he's like, I see no fault in this man, and he sends him back, right? And then they get him to, finally go back to Pilate, whatever. And oh no, I think he wants to send them back. I can't remember now. But all I know is like he tries to do his best not to actually kill him, right? He says, "All right, give him a licking, beat him down, whatever. But we're not killing him." But obviously, Lex, the Pharisees, whatever, they keep pushing to get that, right? To get that, whatever, and because that's their goal. Their goal is they want to see this man dead. Lex in the movie wants to see Superman dead. That's why I say Lex is very representative of these the Pharisees in the story plot. But again, there was no fault. There was no fault found in him, right? And in this movie, same thing. There is no fault in Superman, right? But nonetheless, he keeps surrendering to pretty much for the greater good, right? He surrenders to save his mom, right? That's why he surrenders, right? He surrenders to save his mom. And even though he's sent to go kill the Bat, to face Batman and kill him, he's not going over there with that mission in mind, right? He gets the Batman and he's trying to explain to him what's going on. And obviously Batman's already set on his thing. Now, what I like about that scene though is again, if Batman views Superman in the way of, like I said, like, man, this man convicts me of who I am, right? Because there's really no fault in him, right? And even the things that I'm trying to blame him for aren't his fault, right? And he's being convicted by this man who's just doing good, who offers hope. Now, opposite end, now here comes Superman trying to come up against Batman. And all he's ever trying to do in the movie is get him to stop, right? To stop being who he is, to stop doing the bad stuff, right? Because what Superman is gauging Batman off of is the things that are happening due to what Batman's doing. Even though we know it's not Batman, right? Right? Like, the branding isn't necessarily Batman sending people to die, but in a sense, it is kind of on you, because if you know that the people you're branding are the people that are, and if you don't know that, there's a lack of effort on your end, but I'm sure you do know that, to why you're still branding these guys, and so all that to say, Superman throughout the whole movie is trying to save Batman from himself, right? Like, in a sense, save Bruce, right? There's like even another aspect to this film that I kind of failed to touch on even before this moment. There's that sequence when they're at Lex's library here or event, right? Or at Lex's house for the library funding and stuff like that, of books and stuff like that. What I like about that sequence is they kind of just, this is one of those, like, kind of going a little too deep, because essentially this is the superpower of Superman, right? He has a super hearing. But what's cool about this scene is that Alfred's talking to Batman, right? Trying to tell him what to do, blah, blah, blah. And it's hidden from everybody, but it's not hidden from Superman. And what I like about that is, like, if Superman is this Christ figure, this savior figure, it's essentially the same thing with us and God, right? Or us and Christ. Is that what we are able to hide from everybody, our inner thoughts, our inner conversations with ourselves, we can't hide that from Christ. You can't hide that from God. You can't hide that from Jesus Christ, right? So it's like the same thing there. Like, it's like you think you're hiding it, but Superman hears it all. Like, he's able to catch on the conversation, right? So anyways, that's like a little tidbit there. But all that to say that, again, Superman being this, like, figure, this is who he is. And in this movie, he's essentially trying to save Bruce Wayne from himself, right? Even when he knows Bruce Wayne is Batman. The moment he gets, he opens the car doors and he comes out, he sees him, right? And so what does he say? He says, "Bury the bat. It's dead," And that's that. Consider this mercy, right? And though, like, it's very, in a very boisterous posture type of way, almost, or like almost like stern type of way. Make no mistake, sometimes you got to hear it that way. For the most knuckleheads out there, like, sometimes it's like a complete stop. Like, hey, and for those who know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. When God intervenes in your life, when you're doing all this reckless, stuff, and that's very much, sometimes it's like that. It's just like you come face to face with God. You know what I'm saying? And it shakes your world, right? And he tells you, hey, enough is enough. Drop this, put it dead. We dead in that. You know what I'm saying? That's dead. Consider this mercy. I want you to live, And but like Batman, sometimes that moment isn't enough. And you keep going and you keep going, And you get to that moment where now you're face to face with God, And but and in that fight, obviously, before the kryptonite aspect of it, you have Superman just pretty much putting Batman through the ringer, right? But what's key about this is the fact that he's just beating him up. That's what matters here, because it's like, again, he's not there to kill him, despite the fact that Batman's trying to do everything in his power to, like, level him out if he can, even though we all know he knows he can't, right? Like, all these things are really more of a distraction, mind games, which is, again, that's diving more into that side of just appreciating the technicalities of Batman, right? And how great he is at thinking. But just on the aspect of, like, just the theological perception here, Superman here is just beating him up. And sometimes that happens, man. Like, sometimes, God puts you through the ringer, just so you can finally learn your lesson, you know what I'm saying? But it's not to kill you. It's never to kill you. It's never to take your life, in that same manner. It's cool to see that moment, right? Superman for sure can kill Batman. Like, let's not what the discussion is. We know he can kill Batman. but it's the fact that he chooses not to, right? And that's essentially that savior position, right? He says, I came not to judge the world because the world's already judged, right? But I came here to save it, right? And essentially that's what Superman's doing here too. Is like, I'm not here to kill you, I'm not here to judge you, whatever. I'm here to save you, and essentially save you from yourself, but then obviously so that I can then have you also save other people because I kind of need your help here, right? And which is amazing because that's essentially the story that of Christ, right? It's like he comes to save us, but so that we can also do our part in helping save others, right? It's not just for us, right? Anybody who knows what I'm talking about, the gospel, the salvation isn't just for you alone. It's for you to share with others and bring others to that same salvation, to save others, heal others, right? Like he do all these things, right? So it's kind of a cool part because here it is again. Superman's not killing him. He's not there to kill him. He's beating him up a bit because he's like, "Yo, what's going on?" But he was really just trying to get him to, "Hey, I'm trying to save. Well, let me save you from you, bro, because you're in the dark right now. But can I also just then get once I can help you save you from yourself, can you please help me save others here, right? Right, and essentially it's his mom, right? But now here's another aspect of again how Batman just is the character of Batman really is almost like I want to say trifecta. It's so many angles to this character because it's almost also you can also depict almost in a way he's almost Judas also, right? Like right because it is by Judas that Christ is captured and crucified, right? And it's right the 30 gold or whatever the denaries or I think it was denaries, whatever coins that he sold, sold his own savior for whatever that allowed Christ to be kept, whatever, all that. In similar fashion, right? It's the weapon created by Bruce that brings the death of Superman, right? So in a way, Batman is Judas here too, right? It's its own his own, I guess you could say, selfishness and greed and whatever he was battling at the time. Batman that brings again has him create these weapons, which brings the death of Superman. So that there's that angle to this too that is an interesting angle. But obviously, all this leading to this moment, right? The death of Superman. But what's even another cool depiction here, right, is that so now when Christ is crucified, right, what you have to understand here is that Christ being crucified was him facing death, right? Like, but it's in his resurrection that obviously we see that he conquers death, right? But nonetheless, he faces death and he defeats death, right? In his own sacrifice, right? Now, this is what's kind of cool about this because it's like, so when you see Doomsday is death, right? When you think Doomsday, not just even the character, even the idea, the concept of Doomsday is death, right? So when Superman comes face to face with Doomsday, that's him confronting death, which is what Christ's very thing is doing, right? He's so why that's key is because when you're looking at the Gospels, right, and why I say the archetype is so important here because when I say he says, I came not to judge the world, but to save the world, right? Or I came not to judge the world because the world is already judged, right? And I came here to save it. Or in other contexts, it might actually be condemned. I came here not to condemn, but to save, or something like that. And I think there's another notion where he says the world is condemned already, so I came out to condemn, something like that. What's important about knowing what he means by that is that in a world that's already judged, the wage to our judgment, to our sin, right? The wages of sin is death. So our judgment is death, right? And but that was the truth ever since Adam and Eve, all the way until now, right? Because it wasn't until Adam and Eve are kicked out of the garden for whatever that death was now a thing. So that's the judgment. That's what we are now judged like that. That's the judgment placed on us, right? And especially as far as sin had continued, that was the judgment, right? So death. There's like another. I should have written down scriptures here to actually be more specific. But it says death reigned from Adam till Christ, and then after that, life, because there's life in Jesus Christ. So, anyways, all to say, that's why when you understand that this is what Christ was actually facing off and fulfilling when he decides to give his own life, that's why it's amazing that Doomsday is the character here to bring on, and it's happened even in the comics, so it's not like, oh, but even in the comics, you have to understand what this means, right? So it's not just this movie that does this, but it's in the fashion that they do it in this movie, right? And I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, because I actually wanted to show this sequence. But to even further understand who Christ dies for, why he dies, and or who he gives his life for, and then in mirror aspect, when you see this sequence in this movie, and why again it's very much depicting the same kind of structure, of who he's dying for, or what he's dying for, right? And it's this sequence here. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it. See if we can listen to what he says. I still don't understand how people cannot like this movie. I mean, this whole sequence when Doomsday, Wonder Woman. Look at it. Just get in it. Get it. Well, now here's what's funny about this, though, right? I said last time we talked about Man of Steel, I said in that movie, in Man of Steel, it's Zod who's Satan in that movie, right? He's the role he kind of plays in that film is very much the Satan archetype, and it is Satan who comes to lie, kill, cheat, destroy, whatever, all that, right? And but in this movie, this Doomsday is it is Zod, right? Zod, Lex is who Zod becomes Doomsday in this movie, so it's still Zod, it's still Satan, it's still death. Okay.
I love you.
No, Clark, you can't.
This is my world.
No, Clark, don't.
You are my world.
No.
Right now, back to that sequence in the mountain, right? He's talking to his father. This is why he says what he says here, right? His father, he's having this heart-to-heart discussion with his father, and his father tells him, something that happened, right? That kind of brought him down and that affected him. But that eventually what brought him out of that and what saved him was his wife, right? Which Superman's mom, adoptive mom in the movie, Martha. And he says, she was my world, right? And for her, because she is my world, I was able to help forever. So in this sequence, obviously it's a callback to that, right? Like Lois Lane, Martha Kent was the world to Jonathan Kent. Lois Lane is the world to Superman. And the reason this is key is because, again, in the scriptures, in the Bible, the church is considered the bride of Christ. That's how he refers, like the way he talks about the church and how he's married to the church. regarding the church as his bride, and essentially this is who he's dying for, right? But the bride is part of the world, right? And essentially the world, if they choose to be so, they can also be the bride. They can become part of the church. They can become part of the bride, whatever the case may be, if they choose to accept, right? And this is who Christ dies for, right? So that's why this sequence right here it means something, because Lois Lane is his world. Lois Lane is his bride, or his bride to be, right? And because he was supposed to propose to her, you'd find that later on in the film. But they're together is the whole point, right? That's the love of his life. This is who he loves, and it's his world, right? And this is the world, because he's the world for him. The very act of sacrifice he's about to make is why he makes it her world, his world. And obviously, for those who know, that spear is another picture of the spear of destiny, right? That's the spear that Roman soldiers used to pierce it into the side of Christ when he's crucified, to make sure he's dead, right? That's another reason why I even say Batman also represents the Roman thing, the Roman spirit. But there's a cool part about this sequence that you gotta pay attention to. And again, just more to the imaging. Right there. His hands are like this. Right? Now, crazy. Now pay attention to how the body falls. Same thing. Right? Cruciform, as they call it. This is not by accident, man. This is by design. I'm telling you, Zach is cooking. He's been cooking. He's been cooking since the beginning, man. He knows what he's doing here. He knows what this character represents. You know what I'm saying? So the way he's playing, not playing, but the way he's cooking with his character and the story around it, it's not necessarily his own idea, as me and Carlos, said last time. It's something that's kind of always been. You're looking at these films, though. He does it in a way that the imagery is just so. The imagery, the dialogue, it's very much, it digs deep into the notions of the theological fabric that exists within this character, especially revolving around him being like a messianic figure, right? A savior figure within DC, right? What Christ is for the real world, right? That's what I'm trying to get at, But I find that these movies like this and stories like this, I feel are the most compelling because there's something about this, whether you recognize it or not. Let's say even if you know nothing about the Gospels, but you see a story like this, something about this story resonates within you, even if you know nothing about Christ, or even if you choose to deny Christ, but for some way, this story right here, this character resonates with you. Either, again, you don't know the Gospels, you don't know Christ, but this story, you see it and it resonates with you, this character, the way he is, the things he embodies, the sacrifice he makes, this part of the story, something about it resonates with you because truthfully, in your spirit, in your own heart, there's something in there that yearns for that to be the truth. And the thing is, what I'm trying to say is that that is the truth, that this truth does exist in Christ, right? If you choose to actually believe that. Now, let's just say you are of the mindset that you do know the story, and you still choose to not correlate the two. I think you're fighting even harder against the very fabric of the truth that exists. You're essentially doing what Lex does. You're denying the very truth that does exist, or even what Batman does at one point. But hopefully you can see the truth too. But again, this is what makes this. Just again, the art form that of how Zach puts this together. It's again, if you're paying attention, you'll see it. You'll see it. And obviously, this sequence here is, if they get to it, it's reminiscent of that one photo of them, that image of them taking Christ down from the cross. I didn't get to it. But again, man, it's like the proof is in the pudding. It's there, and it's like I said, this is that whole sequence is that it's just, he comes to face with death, doomsday, right? Boom, sacrifices his own life, the spear of destiny, all that, that whole line, "You are my world," right? He says that to the woman he loves, again, his bride to be. And this is why, again, like I said, I know Man of Steel embodies a lot of the gospel notes throughout it, but when you get to the trilogy of it all, it really flushes out more of the story. There's more notes of it within that story plot, right? And even when you get to the funeral sequences, right? Even that's amazing because it's like, obviously due to the fact that in this movie there's two characters, right? There's people knowing Superman and there's people who know Clark Kent, right? So in this movie it's a bit different. In the movie it's a bit different because it's two different characters. They're different, you know what I'm saying? But the connection to the characters are still representative of something you see in the scriptures, right? Because so obviously in the scriptures it's Jesus Christ, but there are those who are personally connected to him closer, while there are those who were connected to him, from just knowing of him, right? And it says that multitudes gathered, for this. So I think that's kind of a cool sequence too when you see the funeral not celebration, but like the I don't know what to call it actually, but when they're celebrating, I guess, the life of Superman, right? In his, when they're walking his casket, whatever, in the city, whatever, and it's all these people. They even build a monument, whatever, or not that they built a monument, where the monument was, right? There's this whole thing. If you seek him, I forgot what it says. I forgot what it says, but who cares? The whole point is like it's all these people, right? But then on the other side, you have the Clark Kent funeral, and it's those that were actually close to him. And then I like the fact that you also still have even Bruce and Wonder Woman there technically, but Diana in the background, just witnessing from a distance, right? Because there's even those that in the scriptures were like witnessing from a distance because they were too scared to be there, during the actual situation. Meanwhile, those that were close for sure were like his mother, his family, which obviously, in the movie, same thing, right? It's obviously it's Lois, it's his mother there, crying, whatever. Blah. So I said there's a lot of things that are just so tied, to tied or representative or symbolically showing something that is within the scripture. And I don't think it's not a coincidence. It's by design. There's a reason why, again, the actual day of Good Friday, he posted that very same image, right, of what he drew and what he drew in the I guess you could say the painting of it, like whatever is symbolic of the painting. Yo, salute to you, bro. Salute to you, bro. He says, "Love your passion on Zach. Keep up the great work." I mean, yeah, no, I mean, well, bro, it's not necessarily it's like when I'm speaking on now, it's kind of like it's like a duality of passion, right? It's finding it's it's the passion that I have and the very obviously belief that I believe, the faith that I believe in, but kind of but finding an appreciation to how this director in his art form and those that work with him, because it's, again, it's not necessarily, he's not the only one writing the story, um but it's the way that he finds a way to for sure, bro. It's the way that he finds a way to, like, um oh wow, totally forgot to change this to this in the whole conversation. That's essentially what we're talking about, because this is essentially what the film is about. At least this part of the trilogy, it's this part of the trilogy is the Good Friday, with what people observe, or observe on Good Friday, right? It's the death, it's the sacrifice of Jesus, right? This film is that, right? In a nutshell. So again, it's not a coincidence that come Good Friday, that day of Good Friday, that's what Zach posted, right? He posted that one painting, I forget what it's called, next to I don't know if it was like a mock image or something, maybe something that, because he usually draws out whatever he wants to put on camera before he actually shoots it. So I don't know if that's what that was, or maybe if somebody, I don't know, like did that for him. But in the movie they do that, right? Like you see Batman take down, Superman with the cape, like, holding him around the cape, bringing him down around the cape. And that when you look in the scriptures, there's a certain man, I forget his name. I don't know if it was Jonathan or I forget his name, but that asked to allow him to bring down, if they could bring down Jesus from the cross so that they can properly bury him, or properly give him the burial, whatever, in the tomb. And he brought like these fresh linens so that he can wrap Jesus around it and take him to then be washed and all that stuff. So again, it's so that's essentially pin. That's what it is for me. It's kind of just, I'm at awe at just how great this, Zach just puts these images, in the visuals, right? Okay, and then finds a way to tell it even in the story, right? Like it's where it's it all comes together, like properly, depicting, again, almost like you can't mistake it, is my whole point. You can't you can't really deny it. You can deny it if you want to, but like the proof is in the pudding, right? Like when you see these kind of images, right? There's even that painting that does resemble this, where it's, except instead of here you have Lois Lane in the painting, it's like it's his mother, crying over him and stuff. So it's again, these images aren't, and then even in this image, if you can tell to the left, you can't really tell because it's cut out of this one. It's too big for this background, but there's this almost like cross-like figure in the background, and even in the comics, they did the same thing, where they have it's like this thing that's like a cross, and then on one side it's the Superman cape hanging, but the thing that it's hanging off, it's essentially like a cross figure, like a figure of it's in the shape of a cross, like whatever it is, like these two poles or whatever they are, like a sticks, whatever. And this is like a pole and something, like, I don't know, something that's like maybe it's probably like a electronic wire thing, the whatever is out on the streets, but some of them have that cross, shape to them. That's probably what it is, but it's not a coincidence that it's in the background here, right? Zach knows what he's doing. He knows, again, what this character kind of embodies and represents, and what it encapsulates. That again, like if you're denying it, you're just choosing to be either prideful or arrogant enough to just not accept it to be the case. But it is the case, And Zach himself shared it on his Instagram post. Again, I don't know if he's Christian or anything. I can assume so, because in a lot of his conversations he does talk about these types of things. So maybe he's a Christian to a certain degree. Maybe he believes in these kinds of things to a certain degree. I don't know, but I've always stood on this for sure, for a fact, and that's that God uses anybody and anything to push forward his truth and his gospel and his love and all that stuff. You know, all the greatness that comes from what he has to offer. And I feel like this is what this is to me. Like whenever, from the first moment I saw Man of Steel and then saw this and knowing where it was going, even before we got to Justice League, just seeing these things for what they were, I'm like, it's crazy. Cause I don't know if anybody at the time, I was like, I don't know if anybody sees what I see, but this is what I see. I'm seeing the gospels being told, the story of Christ, the passion of Christ being told, but in the vehicle and the character of Superman in this movie, or in these movies, and then essentially kind of even led me more to get more into the character of Superman, because I'm like, I was more of a Batman, fan, and it led me to get more deeper into the Superman lore of stuff and realizing like, oh no, this is kind of who this character is. This isn't just this director who's doing this. This is really who this character embodies, or this is what this character embodies. And then you find out who the creators are, and I'm like, okay, well, not a coincidence, I guess. But yeah, man, all I have to say, Zach was cooking, man, and it's these kind of films that that I think DC needs to bring back. Not necessarily that it has to be. This has been done, right? The story of the gospel has been done, and even when you get to Zack Snyder's Justice League, there's things to break down there that kind of depict what follows, right? What we call Resurrection Sunday, right? For those that observe that,